So let's do a flyover visit of the Motheo tvet college campuses. Now Motheo is huge. It's got around about 30,000 students, and it is in one of the most fascinating areas in South Africa. So let's start the journey, and what I want you to look out for is firstly the Orange River running from a eastern to western line, forming the southern border of the Free State. But the river we're actually going to follow is the Caledon River, or the motheo River, because that's the scene of the massive fights between the Basotho and the Boers, with the Basotho being forced onto the eastern side of the Caledon River, causing the terrible erosion you can see. But the reason we're flying over here is because this is the old historical capital of the Basotho people, and in front of you is Thaba Bosiu, the famous mountain at night, with its ability to defend against all attackers because of the fact that it had 8 natural springs actually on the top of the hill, and it also had only 6 passes which you could really attack on, all the rest being those cliff faces which were almost impossible to get up. Masheshu, by the way, is actually buried over there. And this was the central heartland of the Basotho people, who provided protection to all the people fleeing from the Mfakane and being able to live in the surrounding areas with some protection and peace. Now we've pulled back in an easterly direction over the great mountains of Lesotho with its enormous water reserves. And now we're going to travel in a western direction towards Thaba and Chu, over the Caledon River, or the motheo River, which means in between. So that was like a in-between ground between Moshushu on the one side and then the Batlokwa living in this area, more Tswana kind of a grouping, who were famously quite friendly with the Boers at one stage, helped them out, and were involved in the fight at Vegkop between the Boers and a couple of the black groupings against Mzilikazi. Successfully so, where they managed to chase Mzilikazi all the way out through to modern-day Zimbabwe. The Boers then, in gratitude, claimed that because Mzilikazi had left, all the land was empty and it was theirs, and left the Batlokwa people destitute. And then, during apartheid, they made this small piece of land an enclave, a part of Bophuthatswana, hundreds of kilometers away from any other piece of land. And now we're flying into the Thaba and Chu campus over the National Rural Youth Services Core Center over here, which does rural skills for 1,000 unemployed rural youth. They get paid some money, and over a 2-year period they learn some much valued and needed skills in the technical and vocational space. So it's kind of like a sister institution to this campus over here. And this campus is excellent. It offers all sorts of good business programs, excellent engineering programs, civil, mechanical and electrical, wonderful workshops, good skills, bricklaying and plumbing and carpentry. So a fantastic center of excellence, with the other initiative which we've just flown over again, the Narisek Center, all dedicated to trying to make a difference in this area which has been much abused in the past. Now, right next to Thaba and Chu is South Africa's second biggest township, Botshabelo. And it's recent. It was set up in 1979. Basically what happened was all the non-Tswana people who couldn't live in the Bophuthatswana, Thaba and Chu were forced to locate over here. So many of the rural refugees forced off the white commercial agricultural farming on the one hand, and then a whole bunch of people who weren't allowed to stay in the Bloemfontein township called Mangaung were forced to come and stay here and travel the long distances to Bloemfontein every day to try and find work. And it's over here that we have a satellite campus called Botshabelo, place of refuge. And it offers mainly business studies programs like management and office administration. And it also has a large educare program. So now let's pull back in an easterly direction. We're pulling back towards Lesotho so we can get a sight of Botshabelo and Taba and Chu. This weird urban space which isn't urban, that like apartheid landscape where you have a whole bunch of houses together and schools together, but you don't actually have a city. You don't actually have a place like Bloemfontein, which we're going to visit now. And the first thing I saw when I was flying over this area is the hugely apartheid nature of this town. You can see Mangaung there on the one side, completely brown. Now below you is the greener zones where all the white suburbs exist, with that empty piece of land as a massive wedge between the two. And that is where some of the campuses are located. So that's where you have the Free State South campus, and you also have the Hillside View campus, which we're flying to now. And it's a highly respected engineering campus. So basically over here you can do all sorts of artisanal training on the one side. So you can be a motor mechanic, you can do auto body repair, you can do spray painting and furniture manufacturing and upholstery. So you've got that whole side. Then on top of it, you've got all the engineering programs, civil, mechanical and electrical engineering. Excellent workshops on the one side. You can see them in front of you. And on top of that, you can do other things like IT and computer studies. And you can also do things like multidisciplinary drawing, office practice. Now, one of the things I noticed as I was at this hillside campus was that Mangaung, which means the place of the cheetah, by the way, looked like it's got some pretty good housing and pretty good infrastructure, especially in comparison to Botshabelo and Taba and Chu. And really that's because they located all the excess black people across into Botshabelo and Taba and Chu, and this area they were able to consolidate and turn it into a fairly decent township, again in inverted commas. So now we've flown over Mangaung to plot 32, the agricultural component to Motheo TVET College. And over here they've got a broiler house, so you can do poultry farming. They've got a piggery, so you can do pig farming. They've got an excellent vegetable crop garden. They've put in a huge water tank and they use a dripping method of irrigation, and this has helped with all sorts of vegetable plantations and that. You can also do courses in farm planning and tree pruning. So it's an excellent zone to do the practical agricultural component of Motheo College's huge offering to its 30,000 students. So now let's fly back into Bloemfontein Central following the old Taba and Chu road. Now Bloemfontein is the judicial capital of the country. It's the 7th largest city. And Motheo TVET College really stands by its status as like one of the best colleges in the country. It offers all sorts of innovative projects. So for example, it's got this National Artisan Development Academy, which is a 500 million spend in the attempt to make sure that we really do generate artisans for the country. Not only people who've got qualifications, but people who genuinely can do the job. It's extremely new, so I haven't been able to actually show it to you yet, but it's actually located out by the south campus of the University of the Free State, near where the hillside campus of Motheo is. Now we're taking the scenic route past the waterfront and the stadium, and there's a Mystic Boer quite nearby where I used to really enjoy going when I used to do cricket tours and that kind of stuff. And we're flying into the main office, the Administrative and Management Centre, where all the contracts with the seaters and industry are managed, and all the attempt to do work placements, all really done effectively from the central zone. And they really have come up with all sorts of innovative other projects. So just down the road, they've got the Centre for Entrepreneurship, and it's a rapid incubator. And the idea there is students who've already qualified in things like graphic design, or jewelry design, or clothing design, even welding design. They get a chance to go to this incubator and they learn how to become entrepreneurs to the point where they can actually actively find a job. It's funded by CEDA, the Small Entrepreneurship Development Agency. And it's exactly that kind of work which that central office does. Now we're flying past the old power station and we're flying into the Bloemfontein Central Campus. Like 8,000 students over here. Now it really focuses on the business studies program. So it's marketing and management and office administration. But they do things like safety and society for the police, transport and logistics, hospitality and tourism, and finance, economics and accounting, and all those kinds of things. So that gives you a basic sight of the Bloemfontein campuses. And now we're pulling out rapidly northward. So we've got like a south view, and you can see stretching out in front of you now the Thaba and Chu and Botshabelo campuses. And we're going to fly now down south towards the Koffiefontein campus. Now what you'll do is you'll notice that it's located quite close to Kimberley. So it's in that zone between the Vaal River on the one side and the Orange River on the other side. And it was a hectically valuable mine. In fact, it served up some of the most beautiful white diamonds the world has ever seen. But as white and as high quality as the diamonds are, Koffiefontein itself has really been struggling. The mines have stopped and started in the area, causing massive unemployment. There is currently mining going on there through the Petra mine, and you can see that it's a pipe mine. In other words, the diamonds just go straight down that hole over there. That's around 700 meters wide. And part of me feels really proud that we've managed to get a campus in Koffiefontein, even if it's a satellite campus. The chances of some of the students and adults over here accessing any kind of higher education is really limited, often because accommodation and residences in the big cities is so expensive. So to try and bring it into these towns which are dying out after the diamond boom, I think is a really important investment. Even though over here you really can only do finance, economics and accounting on the one side, and you can be a management assistant on the other. And the account from the reports is that they are struggling with numbers, with huge demand in places like Bloemfontein, and over here really struggling to ensure that the campus is viable. So let's pull out of Koffiefontein, the place of the most beautiful white diamonds and over 50% unemployment. And we're going to pull out now in a westerly direction. So we're looking eastwards and we're pulling out over the great agricultural projects which exist around the confluence of the Vaal and the Orange rivers. And it's the Orange River we're going to track, the southern border of the Free State, with its huge Vanderkloof Dam, the second largest dam in the country, massive dam wall. I think it runs for about 100 kilometers in its full stretch. And then just beyond the Vanderkloof Dam, you've got the Geriep Dam. And that's the central spot which I want to focus on. I want you to look carefully because just after the Geriep Dam is the split where the Orange River carries on in a easterly direction and the Caledon River runs off to your left. And this middle ground, this ground where Zastron is located, was taken away from the Basotho after the Third Basotho War. And technically it's quite hard to understand why, given the fact that even by white standards, the Basotho owned the land on the eastern side of the Caledon River, stretching out in front of you at the top there. So it's caused much unhappiness in this area, this borderland, this conquered territory, which for a long while hardly had any white people staying in it. And the Basotho couldn't understand why they could not use the land. They didn't have the same concept of ownership and of property as the white settlers had. So now this Zastron campus has gone from strength to strength. It used to be a little place in the back of a printing shop, the way I understand it. Now they've bought a bigger building, it's got lecture rooms and it's got an IT center with computers. You can do business management and HR management and marketing management, and you can do educare here. So it's an example of a satellite campus which is slowly but surely growing. So that gives us first sight of the Motheo TVET College campuses, one of the biggest colleges in South Africa, a college with small campuses or satellites in Zastron and Botshabelo and Koffiefontein way off to our left, and then these huge campuses in Bloemfontein, at Hillside and at Thaba and Chu. hugely ambitious 500 million rand projects like the National Artisan Development Academy, and then the smaller Center for Entrepreneurship and the Rapid Incubator, which is trying to encourage entrepreneurial skills. And doing this in a space of historical struggle with the Basotho on the one side, with Lesotho as you can see it, the huge township of Botshabelo, and the struggles with Thabo and Chu and the old Baputut Swana, and then the old historically white Bloemfontein with its black townships and its coloured townships all separately allocated. And then you've got that small little mining town of Koffiefontein. And in all of this, Motheo TVET College is charging forward, trying to make a difference in South Africa.